I've got gear acquisition syndrome. That's what I've got. I've got gear acquisition syndrome. I've been officially diagnosed with it in this video, and it's not life-threatening, but it is bank balance threatening. Hello everyone, Dave here. Happy New Year. This is my first video of 2025. And coming up, I've got the bit that was left over from my studio tour video where I talk about what I like about my setup, what I don't like about my setup, and where I want to go with that. And I'm also showing you some of my video cameras and my YouTube setup. But I had some other questions that I wanted to answer before that. And I also wanted to say Happy New Year. And I also wanted to say a couple of things about last year as well. So I'm going to do that first. Excuse the rambliness of this video. There'll be another mix one coming soon. So if you don't like these ones, then just skip this one and move on to the mix one. But I had quite an exceptional year last year in some ways. Well, maybe it wasn't that exceptional, I don't know. But the thing that stood out for me was ending the UK tour with a gig at the Royal Albert Hall. I did 137 shows last year, and I wasn't nervous for 136 of them. But one of them, the Albert Hall gig, I was genuinely scared. And I haven't been scared live for ages. And I've played the Albert Hall before, but this time there was just something magic about it. There were many reasons to be nervous on top of normal gigs. I mean, it's the Albert Hall, you know? And we had some wonderful guests there. I mean, Steve Hackett from Genesis was there. He's such a lovely guy. My friend Steve flew over from Michigan for it.
And it's startling. It's startling. And now I've seen them 3 times, including twice in 2 days. And they've got a light show, and the light show is synchronized with what they're doing. It's just, it's very, very cool.
But a childhood friend of mine, Dave Phillips, who I was in my sort of first school bands with, he was there. And we were doing a song which I actually did with him when I was at school. And standing there on stage at the Albert Hall and playing the intro guitar riff to that and thinking, there's a friend of mine out there in the box watching me do this, which is something that I did as a kid, and now I'm doing it here at the Albert Hall, just gave me this feeling of, who let me do this? Why am I allowed to do this? You know, real imposter syndrome. But on the other hand, there was a kind of excitement of like, I've made it, I've fooled everyone, I'm here and I'm playing guitar at the Albert Hall again. I mean, I did it in 2019, I'll be honest with you, I don't really remember that. There were some different circumstances around that. That was a pretty weird year. My dad died, so the rest of the year after that is a little bit of a blur. And then COVID happened and we weren't on the road for 18 months. So I don't really remember the first time playing the Albert Hall. I mean, I remember it, but it didn't stand out. But this time round, it really stood out as something special. So that was my highlight of 2024. And I wanted to just say that in a video. This is my channel. It's kind of like a diary of what I'm doing. So, and the other thing in 2024, obviously, is I built this setup out of stuff that I had, and I also bought a load of new stuff, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without help from various people that gave me contacts to be able to get some of this, sometimes with a little bit of a discount. But also I realised while I was putting this together what a great resource YouTube is. Now obviously we know there's loads of audio YouTubers out there, some of which are clearly just pushing a product because they get some sort of affiliate commission for it. And if it's a good product and they actually use it, I don't really have a problem with that. But there are a lot of people out there that are really, really trustworthy. And they give great product reviews and really go into details. And then I actually had a resource of people who knew people from the company, so I could check out some of this gear and I could ask opinions to really good friends of mine who also have some amazing, 500 series stuff and amazing analog rack gear. And between like the YouTube community and my friends, I think I've mostly picked some really good gear. That was a big thing for me in 2024, getting back into the sort of mixing with faders under fingers. So obviously I consume a lot of YouTube content on audio engineering, and shout out to my favorite channels, which are Dan Worrell, who is basically God. White Sea Studios, really like his content. It's very fun and very informative. Hardcore Music, that's I think it's called Hardcore Music, but they're the company that make the Black Salt Audio, that make the silencer plugin. He's got a great channel, some really, really good stuff. Of course, Glenn Fricker, who you must go and subscribe to him and watch his videos, because he really needs some support at the moment and making sure he doesn't lose it in the algorithm. Go and watch his videos, you'll find out why. Warren Hewitt's videos are always good. Recently, he's come back to doing some audio engineering stuff, which is nice. He was kind of analysing songs more for a while, but now he's kind of back doing audio stuff, which I really, really like. And after not necessarily being a fan of Paul Third's YouTube channel, some of it I liked, some of it, I don't know, it left me a bit cold. But I'm really enjoying his Working Audio Tools podcast with Ed Thorne at the moment. So I've been listening to quite a few of those, and that's really interesting listening. But the one thing that I've always had when I try and make videos, sometimes I think, should I be making a YouTube video telling people about this and telling people about that? Because I don't feel like I'm in any position to tell anyone anything. And then when I watch someone's video, and I've watched their channel for ages, and they've got an amazing channel and give a lot of really good information, and then they do a video where they're like, today we're going to record for the first time on tape. And I think to myself, you're trying to teach me stuff and you've never recorded on tape. I started on tape back in the day, and then I suddenly realised that I do have a lot of experience, and some of it, is unpolished, and some things I'm still learning, and some things I know a lot about. But I did own a recording studio for 14 years and worked as a full-time engineer for sort of 7 or 8 years of that. I probably do have something to give back, which is why I've started making more videos with my new setup. But the thing you've got to remember is I'm not an expert. None of these people are really experts, unless you're sort of Chris or Tom Lord Algie or you're Bob Clearmountain or whatever. But I'm not an expert. So if I'm doing something the way I do it, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way or the best way of doing it. It's just the way that I'm doing it now. I've got to say, I feel a little bit uncomfortable in my last few mix videos where I've just kind of whacked on SmartEQ and Auto Align. And actually, it's the first time I've ever done this. And it was not because I like the plugins. In fact, I did call Auto Align magic, which I kind of regret in my last video. But it's not really that I like these plugins. It's just that for the purposes of doing a video, it gets me to the end quicker. I want to get into mixing on the desk. I don't want to sit there listening to something and going, oh, there's a horrible bit in that area, and get rid of it. I kind of like it just prepared so that I can get on the desk, start compressing things and doing stuff which I think is both informative but also entertaining to watch. Me sitting there preparing a mix, going through kind of EQing bits out, splitting the bass into 2 different signals with a high and low. It's not as interesting as actually listening to the music and trying to put it together. So the SmartEQ and Smart DS and Auto Align and stuff like that just kind of get me closer to being able to actually do the video. But I'll be honest with you, I did a bit of a test and I kind of aligned some drums by myself, and then I used Auto Align. I was kind of A-Bing backwards and forwards. And although Auto Align definitely was fatter in a certain way, it was also much more boring, the sound. And I'm going to make a video on this because when I kind of aligned it myself, I did what was necessary, and I did it using my ear as well as measuring phases and stuff like that, measuring the amount of samples to move back. And that's something that's concerned me. I don't want people to think that Well, he's the guy that just kind of lets SmartEQ and AutoAlign do the hard work, and then I just get down to the mix, because literally until a month or so ago, I'd never touched SmartEQ and I'd never touched AutoAlign. And it kind of annoys me that I've used them and almost in my last 3 mix videos built them in as part of my workflows. Oh, well, that's what he's going to do. He's just going to put SmartEQ and AutoAlign on everything. And so that's not something I want to do all the time going forward. And I think, like with everything, it's good in places. So for example, if you've got 2 or 3 bass guitar tracks with mics on things and you want to get them tight and as punchy as possible, I think sometimes things like AutoAlign will work really well on signals like that. I'm just not convinced that it's doing what I want it to do on the drums. It's just making them sound a bit plastic and undynamic. And also SmartEQ as well. It's like if you've got something which sounds horrible and it needs a lot of work to bring it back into the ballpark of something you want to work with, then SmartEQ is a really good choice. But to just willy-nilly just slap it over everything just to... I don't know. I think I've made a mistake with that. So I'm holding my hands up to that. That's something that I'm going to try and avoid for future mixed videos, because watching back and listening to things, I think, yeah, I think I made a mistake there. So with that in mind, the fact that I'm an idiot and I know nothing, I'm going to answer a question which someone asked me before we get on to the end of the video, which is the leftover bit from the last chatty video I did. I made an amplitude preset, I give it away, someone just comments, too much reverb. Well, download the preset and get rid of the reverb then. Anyway, so I got asked a question that I'm going to paraphrase as, if I could only have one piece of equipment, what piece of equipment should I have? There's 2 answers to that, unless I think of another one, and then there'll be 3. The first answer, which is the real answer, is it all depends what you're doing and what you're lacking within your workflow. What problem are you trying to solve? If you're listening to your mixes and you're not finding any problems with them and you're not going, oh, I wish that had more whatever, then you probably don't need to buy anything. I was trying to solve a problem that my mixes were not sounding as good as they did when I was in a studio actually using real stuff. And I think by bringing a certain magic back to it for me, it's made me enjoy it more and end up doing better work. But that doesn't mean that that's true for you. So, I mean, if you've got a nice preamp or you've got a nice compressor or you know, they can all solve a problem. So I can't really answer what piece of gear you should buy that will solve whatever problem it is you've got, because I'm not you and I don't know your workflow. And that's not me trying to dodge the question. It's just, I think it's an impossible question to answer. So my second answer, which completely flies in the face of that answer, is the SSL Bus Plus. Because it is the best unit I've ever owned. And I think everyone should have one. If I could only have one, if I had to mix in the box and only have one bit of gear to process stuff through externally to give a bit of analog warmth or do something that I wasn't managing to do in the box, I would say it's the SSL Bus Plus. I do want to do a video where I take a song and basically mix it in the DAW, but just put all the signals through the Bus Plus, either in stereo pairs or as individual tracks or whatever. I think the unit is that good. My opinion is, I can't give you my opinion, but my other opinion is buy an SSL Bus Plus. I haven't had this stuff long enough. I'm still working out my own workflow at the moment, so I just don't feel that comfortable recommending anything except the SSL Bus Plus. And then second to that, the Blackline Audio B17 2As with the 1176 style compressor and the 2A compressor. I mean, that's blown me away as well. So those 2 items, but the SSL Bus Plus is my number 1 item that I could possibly ever recommend. So with all that rambling, we're now going to get on to the bit of the video which I cut off the end of my last rambling video because it went on too long. And this has probably gone on too long, for which I apologise. But Happy New Year, everyone. And I'll be doing more interesting audio videos on this channel in the coming year. So stay with the journey. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. And yeah, we'll grow this together. So I've made a list of all the things that I love about my setup. The first thing is the modular approach to desks, being able to get these big 6 desks, and if I wanted to get a third one, which I might, they just fit together and sort of come in these buckets of 12 mixable channels with the 4 mono and 4 stereos, and each bucket has its own G-Bus compressor on it, which is amazing, you know, and its own kind of master fader and group insert. So I mean, if I did get a third one, it will end up being a drums one, and then all the rest of the music one, and then sort of vocals or vocals and synths if I was, depending on the session really. But I could see myself going to 3 desks, and that's one thing I really like about the approach. The moment I bought one of these desks, I knew I wanted a second, and I really hoped it would work, and it absolutely has. So that's something I love about it. I also love the fact that with the ADAT in and outs, I can very quickly route any of my outboard gear with hardware inserts in Cubase. That's just so effortless. It's also great that I've got the 2 different monitoring setups. So when I'm sitting in front of the desk, I've got the HS7s, but then when I'm sitting in front of the computer, I've got the Alesis Monitor 2s, which are very familiar to me because I've been using them since the mid-90s in one way or another. I didn't go for the HS8s. A lot of people said, why didn't you go for the HS8s? Because they've got more bottom end. And actually, they do have more bottom end. And I don't find the HS7s lacking in bottom end, but the HS8s, to me, the bottom end is not as detailed, it's not as tight. So when I'm trying to get a bass drum and sort of sub end of the bass correlation going and trying to fit them together, I've got to say the HS7s just sound that little bit tighter. And if I really need to check what's going on in the real low bottom end that these speakers can't do, I mean, that's what I've got the Alesis Monitor 2s for. If anything, I was looking for something that were going to be nothing like the Alesis Monitor 2s. So the HS7s really work for me in that regard. So that's something that I really like about the setup, the 2 different flavors in my monitoring. What's next on my list? Oh yes, right, internal desk I/O. So basically the fact that I'm not having to run a load of different inputs and outputs on other ADAT units to be able to do the I/O of the desks. The fact that these desks just plug in via USB, and I've got 16 ins and outs on each of them without having to really do anything. You just plug them in and they just work. That to me is stunning. So that's a big win, and it also means that if I wanted to add another desk, I could easily just add a 3rd desk, and I wouldn't be sitting there thinking, oh, I've also got to buy another ADAT I/O unit, another Ferrofish unit or something like that, and then maybe another of the Digiface, the RME Digiface. So yeah, really, really pleased with that choice. That was a really good decision by me. Well done, Dave, on that one. The other thing that I really like about this is that when you finished a mix, you can record back all the individual channels at their fader levels back to the computer. So if you just want to revisit your mix and just turn the vocals up a little bit, it's really easy to do on these desks. Also, with this whole setup, working in and out of the box is so easy. So if I just want to just turn on one desk and do something completely in the box, a lot of the time when I'm writing or coming up with ideas, I'm not thinking about routing and patching stuff in. A lot of the time I'm just recording straight into the computer and working inside the box, and then I'll bring it out on different channels when I start to get a bit further on down the line. So the fact that this setup is so hybrid and I can go from there to here and back again really, really easily, I love that, because as I said, I'm no Luddite. I love working in the box, but I also love working outside the box. So this setup kind of gives me the best of both worlds. So another thing I love about this setup is with the hardware inserts and then just render in place, I can bounce all the multi-track back and reprint them through my outboard. Again, making decisions, going, that I like that as a good vocal EQ. You can sort everything out and record it back, so it was as if the original session was actually done through these pieces of equipment. But then of course you've already got those original files that haven't got like loads of compression on them or whatever. So if you want to use gates or anything like that, then you've got a lot cleaner signal to be able to work on. So I love how easy it is to reprint things on this. And the other thing that I like is once you've got those reprinted signals and you bring them back to the desk, you're not dealing with tiny little bits of surgical EQ. Again, you're talking about how much to give a smiley face to something. You know, it's like you put everything up and it's like, it all sounds great, but I just want a bit more top on the cymbals. I'll take a little bit of middle out of the toms, let's say. You know, I'm just going to turn something else up there, put a little bit of treble on something else. And you, with the EQ on the desk, you can kind of do that easily and make all of those sounds just kind of fit together in a really easy way. And that's kind of what I love about the process of this, where you reprint signals and then just make them fit together, and it all works so quickly, so much quicker than I was getting when I was working just in the box. And the final thing that I love about this setup, or more about these desks, is the fact that the sends on here are both stereo, because old mixing desks like the one I had back at the studio, I had 6 aux outs, but they were all mono out. So these are stereo, and they're also panable, which means that realistically, I'm not using these for headphone sends or anything like that. I'm using them to send out to either reverbs or send out to do parallel compression or something like that. So again, the stereo and panable sends on the desks work really well. So one thing that I really don't like about this setup is the soloing, the fact that really to make it work, I have to use the solo buttons on Cubase, and I'm still operating a computer for that. I can use the pre-fader listen, but only on the right-hand desk, because my left-hand desk feeds into the summing input of the right-hand desk. So if I use pre-fader listen on the left-hand desk, it basically does nothing. So I end up a lot of times sort of muting channels and then sort of unmuting them. And to make matters worse, if I'm recording a mix video for you, even the PFL in here, that doesn't center what I'm recording for your stream. So I end up spending a lot of time muting things and unmuting things, or having to turn around to the computer and solo things on there. So it's a minor gripe, but because I can just use the computer to solo things, and that's solo in place as well. But still, I'd rather have things like I had on my old console at the studio, where I could just solo in place on the desk. Another annoying thing, and I'm going to have a swig of tea before this one, because this does kind of annoy me. Using the 2 desks in aggregate mode means that one of the desks always runs a little bit out of time to the other, on recording only, not on playback. I've tested this, so I've sent little clicks and pops and stuff like that through both desks, and then sum them together and check that they're all time aligned for literally hours. And the playback on these is perfect, but when you record, so if I was to get an outside signal that was like a metronome recording into the left desk and the right desk, and I record that to the computer, the left desk, the way I've got it configured at the moment, is always just a few samples out from the right desk. And I just have to be cognizant of that. You know, I have to shift the signals. So if I'm recording an entire mix and all the stems back to the computer, I've got to get all the stems from the left-hand desk and shift them all by a certain amount of samples, which is measurable, and it is the same all the time. And I'm not getting that phase shift on playback. So when I'm playing signals through the 2 desks and they're summed in analog, so my final mix doesn't suffer with any phase issues doing that. It's only for the recording of channels when I'm using the 2 desks. And I think that's just something to do with the way it makes the aggregate device. It's annoying, but it is kind of a tiny price to pay, because I do like the whole kind of buckets of 12 thing that I'm doing with the desks. So yeah, it's annoying, but it's certainly not a showstopper at the moment. And the last thing on my list, which I hate about this setup at the moment, is the fact that I do not have enough compressors to be able to do stuff in real time. Much as I love pre-processing the sounds, running them out all the outboard and reprinting them with all the compression and everything that I want on that, I would actually like to run a little bit more in real time and be able to tweak in the mix. And that's basically because I don't have enough stuff. So the fact that I have loads of stuff doesn't actually mean that I've got enough stuff. There's still loads to get. So what I've still got to get at the moment, I've got a list here. I want to get a pair of the iLoud MTM speakers, because they are amazing. They're by IK Multimedia, and I definitely want to get a pair of them. I want to get another SSL Bus Plus, because I really like using that on my drums, but I kind of want to have it set up to work on drums as a bus, and then I want to have another one that I can reprint that stuff through, so I'm not constantly having to mess around with the settings. I know that's a luxury, but I really would like another one of those. These B17 2As with the 1176 and the 2A side are stunning. It's 2 mono compressors in one that can be dual linked, and I want to get 2 more of those because I bought these to use them as 4 mono compressors, or a stereo pair of 76s and a stereo pair of 2As. And I'm not getting to use them like that at all because I've found other ways of using them that I really, really like, which means I need 2 more. What else have I got to get? I want to get a pair of the B Dynamics. I've got these E Dynamics by SSL, and I think from watching people using them on YouTube, because I do consume a lot of audio YouTube content as well as try and make some of it, I think the B Dynamics have got a flavour about them that I'm looking for. I find the E Dynamics a little bit boring. They're very functional and I certainly wouldn't get rid of them, but they're not giving me any character. And when I heard the demos of the B Dynamics, they seem to have more of the character that I was looking for. So I think I want to get a pair of them, because you have to buy everything in pairs, don't you? Of course you do. I want to get some more of these SSL UV EQs because they're just so functional and so useful. It's not that they've got this amazing sound to them that you can't get out of anything else, but before or after a compressor, just having a stereo EQ, if I've got a stereo pair of something that I'm wanting to put through a compressor, this is amazing, particularly before, because it's got the trim pot on it, so I can either boost or cut the amount of level going into the compressor. So I could get the compressor kind of calibrated so my left and right have got the same amount of gain reduction with a test tone and whatever like that, and they're giving me the same amount of output, and then use the UV EQ just to kind of push either more or less level into them. And I think if I'm going to have more compressors, I'm going to do more in real time while I'm mixing, then I'm going to need some more of those, because they're just like a functional key to just chuck in before a pair of compressors. They're so useful. So yeah, I definitely need possibly up to 4 more of those. But I have also been looking at the Midas 500 series EQ units because they're so cheap and they sound really good. Midas gear is amazing. Their name has been tainted somewhat in recent years because they were bought by Behringer and the whole music tribe thing, and Behringer seemed to be just kind of like putting Midas designed over everything that they do, which kind of cheapens the Midas name a little bit. But actually Midas made some of the best consoles that were out there, and I'm old enough to remember when Midas consoles were king, and their EQ is second to none. So I'm probably just going to get a load of those Midas EQs just to have some really good 2 parametrics and a high and a low shelf or bell EQs. They just look too functional and too cheap just to not have some of them, because every now and again you just need an EQ. You don't want it to have too much character, you just want it to work and do its thing. And I think that's the solution to that, without spending more money on these EQs, which are fantastic, but they're a hell of a lot more money than the Midas EQs. So I think, SSL for posh, Midas for functional. Who knows? I mean, I might do a comparison, realise the Midas sound better. You never know. What else have I got on my list here? I want to get through this. The Grandchild compressor. I want to get one of those. I keep seeing them everywhere. The Fairchild 660s and 670s are some of the most sought after compressors in the world, and I'm never going to be able to afford one of them. Well, that's not true, but maybe one day. But I wouldn't buy an original one anyway. I'd get a Stam Audio copy of one, or the Heritage Audio one. But they've made a Grandchild that's a small version of the Fairchild, which is a 500 series compressor, and I really, really want to get one of them. I've been watching loads of reviews and they just really excite me. So that's definitely on my shopping list. An 8-way Neve 1073 OPX unit, and also an 8-way Pure Drive Octo set of preamps, just because I really like running signals out through preamps. A lot of the time, if people send me multi-track, then it's not been recorded through anything nice, so it's nice to just run your drums out through some nice preamps and just print them back before you're doing anything. This also goes with my workflow, because if I'm taking the M32 out to record some drums somewhere, Those Midas preamps on the M32 are incredibly transparent, and I'm just basically getting digital signals, and then when I get home I can run them out through the Neve and the SSL stuff and print them back with some warmth, with some character, and I think the 8-way Neve and the 8-way SSL means that I've got 2 flavours of character. Now that plan may change if I buy myself an SSL Origin console, which I can't afford at the moment, but at some point I would really like to get it. And I'm struggling internally because I love these big 6 desks and you can do so much with them and they sound so good. And I could probably just buy 2 more of these and with some clever trickery and a patch bay pretty much get to do everything I want to do. And if I can get the iPad controller for Cubase working with the solo thing, then I could solo using that. But I know that the real thing that would just solve all of my problems, and I wouldn't need to buy any of the Midas EQs or buy any more bits and pieces like that, would just be to get an SSL Origin console, but they are an absolute fortune. I might sell my 1958 Strat and buy an Origin console at some point. It is something I'm seriously thinking about. I'm so tempted. So if you've made it this far in the video, tell me in the comments whether you think I should buy an Origin console and ditch the multi-desk Big 6 thing, because I do love it, and I wouldn't sell the Big 6s. I'd just have these set up in another room, because I don't know, just because I've got gear acquisition syndrome. That's what I've got. I've got gear acquisition syndrome. I've been officially diagnosed with it in this video, and it's not life-threatening, but it is bank balance threatening, and I'm worried about myself, and I don't know what I'm going to do when I've got everything I want, because then there'll be something else, won't there? There'll always be something else. I am a tragic case, and I'm not going to apologise for it. So you've made it through to the final bit of the video. This is the bonus section of the whole thing. I said I'd say a little bit about my video setup. I will do another video about this in more detail if you're interested, but what you're looking at me now through is my Blackmagic 12K camera, which is actually recording in 8K, because 12K, even with my face, is completely overkill. Up behind me when I'm doing mixed videos, in that direction somewhere, I've got one of my Blackmagic 6K Pros with a fisheye lens on it, which basically captures the room. Above here, I have a Sony ZV-1 camera, which looks over the whole of the desks. I had, in my last 2 videos, I had my Blackmagic 4K production camera with a really awful lens, actually, filming the 500 series rack, because I had lent out 2 of my other Blackmagic cameras, but I will, for future mixed videos, be having one of my other 6K Pros pointing at that. I've got some Sigma art lenses that go on them. I've also got some Canon lenses. It's all EF stuff, but yeah, it's a nice video setup. I can do a decent video shoot in this place and have it pretty much all in RAW. The storage is ridiculous, so I do not keep all the RAW files for my mixed videos. I compile them and I'm happy with them. I keep the master of it and then the rest gets chucked, because otherwise I'd be using like 0.5 terabyte every video, which is absolutely ridiculous, and I'd rather put that money, because I'd end up just buying hard drives, I'd rather put that money into gear to make cooler videos rather than just storing an archive of me sitting there pushing a fader up and down. So that's that. When I'm editing, I do all of that in DaVinci Resolve on the computer, and that is absolutely wonderful. I moved away from Premiere Pro a long time ago, and I didn't regret it at all. Blackmagic cameras, and apart from the ZV-1 that's above there, and DaVinci Resolve, and that's kind of my main setup for all the video side of it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it answered your questions. Thank you so much for asking so many questions. It really means a lot, and I hope this answered them all for you. Please leave me more questions in the comments. I try and respond to absolutely everything. I'm still at that stage in my channel growth where I can actually reply to pretty much everyone that leaves me a comment. So feel free, leave me comments, like the video, subscribe, share my videos, do all of that stuff. You're making me very happy, and thank you for making the comments section such a sewer-free area. In fact, that's what I'm going to call it from now on. My comment section is a sewer-free zone. So yeah, thanks again. See you in the next video.